Sherry Goodman is a Secretary General of International Military Council for Climate and Security and also a senior strategist at the Center for Climate and Security. She is now joining us live from Massachusetts, United States. Sherry, good to have you with us on the program and welcome. Extreme temperatures have hit Europe this year as the world swelters through the El Nino weather pattern, and also greenhouse gas emissions warm our climate. I guess the question now is, why is it so hot in Europe and more so in Greece? And how long is it expected to last?
Wow. Well, that's a question we all want to know the answer to. But we do know that climate shocks, climate extremes are now the new normal. The world has shifted because of the intense greenhouse gas emissions in our atmosphere. And now we live in a period that is completely different than the historical past, where records are being shattered every day. We've had now 22 consecutive days in Phoenix, in Arizona, in the United States, where the temperature has been above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is expected to continue. We have, as you noted, a deadly heat dome over much of the Mediterranean and southern Europe. Across the United States, in the southern United States, we have deadly heat. We've had Canadian wildfires that have been raging now for over a month, sending toxic smoke and air pollution down across much of the eastern seaboard, including where I am in Massachusetts and throughout New York and Washington. So we have to be clear. This is a world we're going to have to adjust to. And the most important change that we've seen by many ways is what's happening in the oceans. So the temperature rise is one important measure, but marine heat, the rise in temperature in the oceans around Florida in the United States, it's now been over 90 degrees, temperatures around Ireland and the UK. So we talk, 70% of the planet is oceans. And as that temperature consistently rises, we're going to experience more deadly effects, more sea ice retreat and melting. And the oceans really are the lungs of the planet. They provide us so much of our oxygen that this is really a critical moment for everyone to wake up and realize that we need to act.
Sherry, there are so many people who are dying. Last summer's heat waves contributed to 61,000 deaths in Europe, and that's according to a recent study. The numbers for this season have not been accumulated yet. But how does one stay safe from the heat wave, especially in Europe?
Well, that is such a good question. I mean, obviously, air conditioning provides a solution, but it's not available to everyone. And of course, if you're running your air conditioning on fossil fuels, you're just contributing to the problem. So, in the near term, hydration, cooling, changing temperatures, limiting activity. These are all going to be important both in Europe and on the Indian subcontinent and in the southwestern United States. And learning to live with, in certain areas, learning to live with less energy, more resilient solutions, smarter surfaces. For example, many of the ways we pave our roads and build our buildings just absorb more heat. But we can go to new technologies now. And India, US, many other countries are now engines of that new technology. We need to be investing in those resilient solutions for energy, for heat, for agriculture, in the way that we have invested in military technology. And there are important opportunities here. And I do look forward to seeing much of the engines of technology have come out of India on solar, but there are other areas too in terms of climate technology. And one of the important areas is improving this predictive capability so that we can better manage to the climate extremes we're now living in. Because we have near-term weather, which tells us maybe next day or in a few days ahead. Then we have the long-term climate models, and that tells us what we think the world's going to look like 50, 75 years from now. But we have to fill that 1 to 10 year gap. That 1 to 10 year gap in near-term climate prediction is where both science and technology is really going to focus in the future. And I'd say that is going to be a key opportunity in climate technology.
Sherry, that's a very good point. Let's expound more on that, and I want your quick response to this one. Apart from the wildfires and the heat in Europe, there's the flooding and landslides in Asia, especially in India. What do governments in these countries need to do to avert a catastrophe in the future?
Well, that's such a good question. Partly, they're going to need to have more emergency response capability of the type that fire departments, flood managers have, and in many cases, as we see in the U.S., they have to be, and in Europe, they have to be supported now also by our military because they have a lot of lift. They can do search and rescue. They can provide additional capability. But that's when the catastrophe has already happened. And we'll have to be prepared to have more of that emergency response capability resident at the local, regional, and national level. But that's just when the catastrophe happens. But we have to try to get a little bit ahead of the curve. That's why sort of flood control measures and improved predictive capability, all of these, we need all of these engines of both technology and preparedness. We have to focus on being climate ready and climate prepared at every level of government in every region of the world.
Right. I've been talking to Sherry Goodman, Secretary General of International Military Council for Climate and Security, and also a senior strategist at the Center for Climate and Security. Sherry, thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today.
It was a pleasure to be with you, Eric.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.